purposes of this, though, is to show that the book that was released last year, which I'm told is not correctly titled, it's actually, people are determining that it's a pamphlet, but I will argue it's called the book, so I can call it the book if I want to. Now, it's part 1 of 3, and the evidence that I have to show that I didn't write it, because I have no evidence to show I didn't, is that right? What I'm trying to say here is, the evidence that I have to say that I didn't write it is not obvious, I have to point it out. Other than that, you just have to take my word that I am saying I didn't write it. That's probably going to sound confusing, but never mind. So what we've got here is, we've got the book 1, For All Humanity, and Ramanamma Who. So Ramanamma Who is the author's name, and it's a spiritual name, Ramanamma, that was given to me prior to writing the book, and that was so that this could be seen to be coming from a different person than the people that knew me or know me knew. So effectively, I've not been known as a spiritual, religious person. I've probably been known as a scientific person. So the fact that I'm endorsing these other 2 doctrines now seems unusual to those that know me. So the book is written using science, religion, and spirituality to explain the world that we're actually living in. And as I said, this is part 1. So the title of the book was given to me. Now, when I came up with the cover, and this is what's been said about the cover by another author, they asked, do the tartan slippers and the pipe come with it? Because as far as they were concerned, it looks rather boring. And it does, but it was designed that way. It's designed to look boring. It was designed to have a mundane look and not look interesting at all. That might be perceived as because I felt that the contents were far more valuable than the cover, so I came up with a drab cover saying to people, don't judge the book by the cover, and I believe that's what this author did. She judged the book by its cover. But what's actually going on here is this cover is saying, don't judge me. So the 3 doctrines that are used are actually said in the book on the front cover, and I can see that it doesn't actually say it includes religion, science, and spirituality. But if you look at the title of the book, that was deliberately done that way, as it had a religious look to it, written that way. So the idea was that the book would make people think of the Bible. So that it has a subtext in it that says religion. Humanity has been credited with coming up with science. So what we have here is mankind and science in a subtext. Ramanamma Who is a spiritual name. So what's being said here is spirituality. So we've got religion, science, and spirituality being said in the background of this text. Now, you wouldn't know it was there unless it's pointed out to you. And this is not imagined, because this word Ramanamma also does the same. I've got, for the purposes of this, a breakdown of that. So basically, this word Ramanamma is a 3-syllable word. Ra is an ancient name for God, as people always point out to me, an Egyptian name for God. It doesn't matter, you've got religion in that first part. Man, again, as I said, was credited with science. So you've got science in that part. And Amma is a spiritual word for mother. So you've got spirituality represented here. So this word, Ramanamma, says religion, science, and spirituality. And that's exactly... So it says it twice on this front page. It's saying religion, science and spirituality, and then in the name Ramanamma, religion, science and spirituality. Now that's what I call a subtext that's in there. Now even if you believe that I came up with this cover, I can only say to you I did not intend, I didn't even know that those were there until about a month ago, and it was shown to me the same way in which the book was given to me. So this book, rather than having a boring front cover, actually has quite an interesting front cover. Now the reason for me doing this and putting it online is because I'm not moving in circles where people are academic, so this may or may not seem interesting, or it may seem boring to some people or have no significance whatsoever. But for me, on a literature level alone, this has got to have been a first. I don't know of any other authors that have managed to write some sort of subtext into their front cover, which explains what the contents are being talked about. Now that's the front cover before I've even got to this small pamphlet type book, which is only 18 pages long, and most of those pages, only a few of those pages actually have text on them. It was designed 1 page per chapter. Now the other thing that's significant is the number 3, and the 3 shows up all the time. There's 3 syllables in this word Ramanamma. There are 3 lines in this title, and this 3 keeps coming up, because 3 is what determines our universe. The problem I have is it uses science, religion and spirituality, and although their belief systems are based around those 3 doctrines, again 3, and there is only 3 doctrines in our world. There aren't any others. We imagine that there's something else, but you have only 3 things that explain existence to us, or are attempting to explain existence to us, and that's religion, science and spirituality, and combinations of that. Most people in this world, this day and age, veer towards science, and science is what's giving us our world. It's explaining our world to us. The problem with what science is giving us, though, is that it's given us a world that is man-made, if you will, or created by some random choices that are going on. And when they look out into space, they see things banging into each other, and for them, the whole universe started as a pinpoint which exploded into everything. And most people have a sort of idea that could work, but in actual fact, a random world would not work at all. There would be absolute chaos, and people sometimes say, well, there is chaos, but there would be chaos on a level that we couldn't even begin to understand. So, with these 3 doctrines being the only answers that we have, what seemed to have happened in the world was it was given that these 3 would be at odds with each other. So I was given to look at the 3 and pull out what were consistencies in it. And one of those consistencies has been the fact that they all point to everything being made from the same thing. So science, for them, they're determined that we've come from one single source, one single point, and everything we see, everything that exists in the universe, has come from that one source. So everything is made from the same stuff. God, religion has God, and God is omnipresent and He's everywhere, so they have everything being God, and spirituality is the same, but they call it Brahma. Now, each of these people or each of these doctrines that have people in places that understand the doctrines will understand what I'm saying here. And this is where I want to put this in. It doesn't matter whether you understand what's being said here or not. That's not how our world works. I know that's how we're told how our world works, but it works in a completely different way. And this thing I'm pointing to with the book is the subtext that's hidden in our language. It's hidden in the way we speak, the things that we're saying, the subtext does exist, it is there, and it's that that determines and moves and shapes our world. We are not aware of it. We think the world works in a particular way. So I don't want to get into too much complexity here, and I also don't want to get on to the point where it goes on for hours and hours and hours. Because there is only a singular audience member, I feel that I could condense this a little bit and maybe get this done in an hour or so. What's being said here is that, and I've gone off the point there, and I shouldn't have gone off the point, but let me see if I can bring it back to where we were. So the book cover, and the book is part one of a story of humanity, and this story is coming to an end. All three of these doctrines point to everything being made from one single thing. So for ease, and because this is how it was given to me, I am saying here, or it's being said here, everything is God. Now, the word God, everybody in the world knows what that's supposed to be, and the connotation of what God is intelligence. So, yes, what's being said here is every single molecule in our world, in this universe that we live in, is intelligent, every single molecule, because it's made from God. And there is only God that exists. Now, somebody asked me earlier why God is waking us all up at this point in time. I've probably jumped ahead again there, though. So, everything made from God, and everything controlled by God. So it's all determined. So what looks like randomness to us is not at all. It's God at play, and it's given us the illusion of randomness. And the reason why it's done that is because this world we are in is an illusion. And it is pretending to us that we could be here by the way that science is describing it. And I've no problem with this because God is science. God is what's being said in this world. God is saying this now. There is only God. So, and it's God that's listening. And this is the thing about this. When you only have God, then there is nothing for you to do. Now, who are you? This is the thing about spirituality, always pointed to find out who you are. And they always pointed inwards. All the doctrines and the teachings have all said, look inwards. I believe religion was saying the same thing. I think when Jesus came and taught, from what we can tell from the Bible and things, he was saying the kingdom within. That's what he talked about. And they understood that there was something that God was telling them to look within. I've pinched a line from an event in the Bible, and I can't remember if I have used it in the book or not, but this, when Moses was confronted by the burning bush, he asked, who are you? Who should I tell the people who you are? And the bush allegedly replied, I am that I am. Now, for me, it was a play on words here for this, and I believe that God can do this, even as a burning bush, putting the impression in Moses' mind, but he was pointing it at Moses and saying, I am that I am. So basically what I'm saying here is God was telling Moses, I am that we believe ourselves to be. So for me, what I'm saying, now let me correct this because I want to correct the language. I'm being given to know that we are all souls in bodies. We are not bodies with a soul, we're actually a soul that's been put into a body. And the thing about this is, you've arrived, you will be here, and you will leave, and every single person on the planet will go through that process, without exception. Nobody gets out of here alive, as they say. But we do leave and go somewhere else. Now, this soul that I'm talking about is the awareness. It's you. It's not the body you're in, although we've become associated with that. Our soul thinks it's the body, it thinks it's the mind, it thinks it's all these things. But the soul, in actual fact, is just pure awareness. That's all we are. We're here to observe and experience this. Now, in order to observe and experience it, it has to be full. You have to believe that it's you that's doing it. There are many things that are going on in this world and have gone on that is all for the benefit of the soul that's in the body. It's teaching us about individuality. It's teaching us the consequences of individuality, what happens when we only think about me, etc., and things like that, and I'm in a body and I need this and I need that. And these characters that we've been given to observe play out their roles in the world, and we do become attached to them, and that's what's happened. But we've come to a point in history now where this world has to come to an end. And the question that's asked, why? Why does it have to come to an end? Because it is an illusion. And all illusions will eventually dissipate, and more reality will appear for us. Now, I don't know anything about the next level where we're going to, but I'm not alone in this either. There are millions around the world who know about this change that's going on. And even those that aren't into any particular doctrine or anything, there's a sense that there's something happening in the world today and that things are changing. Is it this radical? Yes, it is. It's the end of the world as we know it, basically. And the reason for me doing this is because I've been given to deliver this message, but I'm just a messenger. What happens is when the messenger gives the message, people associate them with that message and then therefore believe that it's them that are saying it. And I have things said to me like, this is just your opinion, etc. I get that, but if you listen to what I'm saying here, I would not say this if I just believed or had faith in this. I would not say any of this. I am intelligent enough to know how crazy all this sounds, and yet I am saying it. And that's because it's out of my control. So there's a soul in here that understands how crazy all this sounds. And that soul's lived on this world for 50 odd years, and it knows that this kind of talk would be perceived as crazy. Yet this soul has no determination over it. My soul is basically in the background going, whilst this character that is controlled solely by God, and it's the same for everybody, is doing this. Why? Because it's doing what we would determine as God's bidding, basically. God is waking the world up, and this is how he's doing it. He's providing what's called plausibility. Now, I like this word, plausibility. It's used to keep us satisfied. And what's happened to me is that plausibility has been taken away. My soul is completely aware that this character's life is going off the rails in some way. I won't go into the details of my situation, but my situation's very drastically, for the human perspective, for the world's perspective, worse than what it was prior to this happening. So I could argue the point, why would I be trying to make the situation worse? And that's basically what looks like it's happening here. I keep saying these things like the world is coming to an end. So I'm asking you to pay attention to the world around you, because I'm saying, let me correct that as well. I'm being given to say, or it's being given to say, that you need to pay attention to the world around you in your daily lives, and that's because God, who is in control of everything, will show you that this is true. It will do that because this is at the point where it wants to wake all the souls up that are in the bodies in the world. So I could give you background on what happened to me, and I'm sure that might be an interesting story, but I'm not here to talk about me because there is no me. There is a soul in here, but as far as I'm concerned, my soul has no control over this body, and this body has been given a task, which was to deliver this message to the world. The journey to this point has been chaotic at times, and nothing like how it could be. And by that I mean there are different versions of this. So let me give you a little bit of science behind what's written in the book. So science recently have discovered quantum mechanics, and quantum, basically the quantum world, is the leading theory at the moment for most of the top scientists, in particular physicists. So basically what it says is there are many worlds, and at some point or other our characters, our world if you will, splits because something happens in a different way. There was a choice to be made and another choice was made, but both choices are made and another world is created. Now again, I'm not going to get into the mechanics of this, and anyone that understands quantum should be able to put this together. So what basically science is saying, when that split occurs, those particles, doesn't matter how far apart they are, and when they've split particles, they know that whatever happens to that particle will happen to that particle. So there's a correlation between the two, connected all the time. That never gets broken. Science understands that. So what's happening here is when the world has split and a new version of you has been created, whenever it is happening, however it happens, that is still connected to you here in this universe. So what I've discovered, been given to discover, is that we have three different types of thoughts in our minds. One of those types is the quantum. So basically the brain is a quantum computer. It is connected to all the other brains in all the different worlds. So when something happens to a version of you in another world, you receive it as a thought in this world. And for you, you're imagining something. So you're imagining you're doing something. Well, what's being said here is that is actually happening somewhere. It's happening to a different version of you, and you receive it as a thought. When you understand that this is how that works, you can actually use that to your advantage, because what's happening is you're being shown things, the potentials, if you will, that can happen in this universe. The thing about this universe, though, is it has to be a surprise for us. It's all part of the reasons why we're here. We can't know for sure what's going to happen in this world until it happens, basically. We are given to just experience this world. But you can see what is occurring when you pay attention to your daydreaming and your thoughts. And in fact, those things are what have created the world that we live in. Things like Spider-Man and all these novels that have been written. I always interject here, I always say, but it's all fake, and I'll bring you back to the fact that it's all just God. So God has written everything that's ever been written. God has played every instrument that's ever been played, every song, every movie, every novel that's ever been written, all written by the same thing, God. And what it's been doing for, I don't know, for me, 50 odd years, for some probably longer, but what it's been doing is it's been speaking to us, it's been showing us in art and literature, in world events, it's been telling us the end is coming, and it's been showing us again and again and again. But because we believe it's humans imagining these things and creating these things, we're not taking any of this seriously. And again, I'll point to you, start paying attention to the world. Start paying attention to what God has made you interested in, because that is something specific for your soul. And I want to speak a little bit here about souls, because souls are the only thing that keep me going. If it wasn't for the fact that there are souls in this world, I would have left a long time ago. Now that might sound like a drastic thing to say, but let me point out to you. I know this world is fake. I know that we go beyond this point. So for me to stay here is a contradiction, and you'll find there's lots of contradictions in our world. That's the way it's been designed. It's a contradiction for me to stay here, because if I'm saying this is not real, then why haven't I left? And that's exactly right. And again, I'll plead for my soul here, because my soul is not in control. And my character has been given to deliver this message. So until that's done, I'm not going anywhere. Part of me, and again, I can speak like this because I'm speaking, being given to speak as a soul rather than a person. Part of me hopes that that's what this is, that this is the final, I only need to do this, and once I've done this, I can then move on. I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect God will have other things, because I cannot determine what will happen here. I've seen this play out in different ways, but I cannot determine what will happen exactly here. So let me bring you back to the book and this subtext. So what I'm going to do, I only have 3 images to show, and I'm going to move on to the next image in a second. But what I'm going to say here, this subtext, I'm going to use that, and I'm going to say 3 lines which will speak to a specific group of people in the world. Now, I know that these people are being pointed to me as the kindest, most advanced souls on the planet. Now, that's what the system is telling me, and that's why it's given me this subtext to give to this particular group. Now, until I do it, you probably won't see what I'm going to say, but I'm going to give 3 lines, and those 3 lines will only speak to a particular group of people that exist in the world, and there should be millions of them. I'm going to ask them to help me with an appeal later on, but I'll do all this later once I get to the end point, and I'll send this message out particularly just to those people. That will be this character's proof that this is real, and that I am not making this up, that this is being created by something way, way more intelligent than any kind of human being. So, for me, I'm pointing to the book. It's even more remarkable to me because I know I didn't write this, and I know that I would not be have been intelligent enough to hide religion, science, and spirituality on this front cover. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the most important book, in my opinion, and I know I have to say that because it would get me into trouble otherwise, but in my opinion, the most important book ever written, and it's this one. So, this book, Making Sense of Nonsense by Raymond Moody, is actually a tool that's been given to humanity. Now, Raymond Moody is a top, he's a medical doctor, and he has PhDs and everything. So he's a recognised a recognised person within the academic circles. Now, what Raymond did was he very bravely, some time ago, started to look into the near-death experiences. He's only done 1 interview with this book, and I personally have done more promotion of this book than him and his publishers have ever done. And the reason for that is because the author, just like the problem I have with my book, cannot make these claims for this book. This has to be made by someone that's not written it. And it's the only reason why I can speak about the book, the one I've written, in the way that I do, because I am claiming I haven't written it. So I'm not speaking about the book as an author, I'm speaking about somebody that's been shown things. So the same with this. Obviously I'm not Raymond Moody, and I am promoting this book because it is teaching humanity what's known as a core skill. And I've been shown this. This has all been given to me the same way that everything is given to us all. as thoughts, but I now know what these thoughts are, but we'll come to that later. So, it's teaching a core skill. So a core skill basically is reading, writing, walking, swimming, riding a bicycle. It's these things where you are given a few rudimentary bits of how to do it, and then you practice those and become better at it. So this is what's going on with this book. Now, the nonsense that Ramanamma Who points to in here is the nonsense rhymes that we are used to by Dr. Zeus and that sort of thing, these silly rhymes. He does use those, but they are the rudimentary parts of learning to make sense of nonsense. But the actual nonsense that he's teaching you about in the world is the things that we cannot understand in the world, like God, like what spirituality say with Brahma being everything. These things that don't make sense to us, we can't get our heads around. So what this does is it teaches you a few rudimentary things about nonsense, and then this subroutine that exists in our world determines, based on your own parameters, as to how quickly this will catch on with you. There isn't anything for you to do. You don't even have to understand it, and it's the same with this, and I'll reiterate this. This does not need to be understood on an intellectual level. And that's because what's being said is loaded with these sub-words and sub-commands that we're unaware of. And it's the same with this book. When you read it or listen to the audio version, there is a subroutine that goes on, and it gives you this skill that you will not notice anything, any change at all. It's not like you wake up the next morning and all of a sudden you can do this. It will, and this is the thing about this, beauty and grace. This is given to you gracefully. This is a gift that's given to you gracefully. You will feel at all times that it is you that is changing and that it's you that's noticing these things. At no point do you think, oh, it's the book I read that's done this for me. And that may be the case forever, but I'm banking on the fact that I'm aware of what the book has done, and I believe others that have read it may also be aware of this, and Ramanamma Who himself may also be aware of this, although I'm making no claims for him or his cow. But what this book does is it lets you see things like the subtext that I pointed to earlier, and the bigger demonstration that I'll give later. It allows you to see these things going on in our world, which then makes for the world to be able to change in a way that it hasn't done before. So the system is having me say most important book in the world, and I promote this book above mine. Now again, I'll ask you to look at the unusualness of that. Why am I selling this guy's book when I've got my own book to sell? And that's because what I am saying here, that is the most important book ever written. That's what it is, and that's what anyone would do that knew that. So, which was that knowledge is what is given. When you are given knowledge, and that's what's going on here, you were only being told about this. You're not being asked to do anything with it, it's just knowledge you're being given. Once you've been given knowledge, you can then be given to live as somebody who's given that knowledge, yeah? But the system itself, or God, determines that based on who you are. If you're somebody that's never had any experience of anything spiritual, religious, or even scientific, that would be hard to do. But there are some people who don't have any attention in any of these things, but they will have a little bit of knowledge or some sort of knowledge of what they think is going on. God has to provide plausibility that will lead to you knowing and understanding that with all these different parameters that it's got to work with. So I've gone off a bit there because, as I say, this will always run into complexity if you let it. I could go on off on trails everywhere, but I'm trying to point to the things that are easy to see for yourself, within yourself, basically. So I'm going to come to a point here where I wasn't sure whether I would explain this, and I did do a video once about this already, about how the body works. The reason why I don't really want to go into these things is because you have to have a certain knowledge of science, and you have to know what the latest science is on it, what the latest thoughts that science have about it, or what their understanding is. And if you don't have that, then it's difficult to get your head around what I'm saying here, but I'll attempt it anyway. So basically I was saying that you don't control the body. So what effectively happens is, when a signal comes to your brain telling your body to do something, and that is what's happening at some point or other, the brain then sends the signal to the parts of the body it wants to move. That you cannot do on a conscious level, and that is what science determines is being run by a subconscious. Now, they've never found a subconscious, and they haven't found the conscious mind either. So effectively, this is guesswork that that's what's going on. Most of it is based on the fact that, yes, it does work, we do move like that, and it does appear that when we have a thought that the movement happens. But they also noticed that there was a microsecond between an action happening and a thought. That was a little doorway opening into the world of what's actually going on. So there is an action that goes on, but then the thought, which comes almost instantaneously, is basically just informing you what's happening. And it does it all day long with you. Now, the three types of thoughts that we have in our head, you've got these quantum thoughts. The second ones are these instructions that come to your body. I'm hungry, I am thirsty, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then the body springs into action. Now, those are instructions that are being sent to the body. Now, for us, science is saying it's being created, generated by the brain, but they've not seen this, and they can't determine where the brain would be doing that. So what I'm being given to say here is that these particular thought patterns that are coming, that instruct the body to do things, that tell you you're feeling tired and things like that, are actually being projected into the body via some sort of radio or some sort of system that allows the brain to then receive that. So effectively what we are is we're a receiver transmitter. So we receive this information and then we transmit it, just like I'm doing here. This message is being transmitted to me, and it's coming through me and being this message is being received by me, and then it's being transmitted through me. So I'll touch on briefly why I became aware of this, and that is due to being given what's known as enlightenment. Now, the thing about enlightenment is you're not supposed to tell people you're enlightened. That's bad spirituality to go around saying you're enlightened. It's not, because people are who are enlightened don't tell other people that they're enlightened. Other people are supposed to know it from their demeanour and the way they are. But for the sake of this, I need to say that that's what occurred, and that's how I ended up with the name Ramanamma and the title Ramanamma Who. Now, for spirituality, that should be a very intelligent name, Ramanamma Who, because it's what spirituality points to. It's saying, who are you? And it asks you to look at that. So it was a very clever use of the word who, but that has many different purposes, and most of which I can't go into. And there's a lot about this that I can't say because it just would not be understood on this level at this point. But things are changing, and eventually I'll be able to show far more evidence for all of this. This is what I'm showing at the moment is just a small piece of what I've been given to show. I see far, far more than that, lots more than that. But I'm not able to sort of articulate that to you at this point because it will just sound fanciful, and I don't have the evidence to point to for it at this point. That should change when I give this final part. So what I'm going to do is move to the third image, because the people that are going to hear this, that would be in a position to recognise what's going on here, they are far and few between. It's all part and package of this idea of this gradual waking up of the world. So what this is waiting for is for some kind of endorsement. In the meantime, what I want to do is I want to point to the world that we're actually living in. So, although I don't have concern for these human beings that you can see in this image. It is dreadful though, there are human beings on our planet who have to eat rubbish from the tip in order to, from rubbish dumps in order to survive. There shouldn't be a soul on the planet that doesn't feel that this is disgusting, and it just shouldn't be happening in the 21st century. So I'm going to use this that I have understood to make an appeal. I want to raise some money because I'm talking to people all over the world. This particular image is from the Philippines. But there are countries all over the world where, and you're not talking a few hundred people or even a couple of thousand people, you're talking millions of people who have a substandard life, when that just shouldn't, it's not necessary in the 21st century. There is something we can do about this, and that's what this part of this presentation is all about. So this particular group of people that I'm going to appeal to, I'm going to ask if they send me £1 or $1 or whatever the equivalent is in your denomination. This video will go out with a PayPal link underneath. You can click on that, and if you use as a reference to your $1 or £1 donation the word that you see coming from these three lines, the subtext. So I'll give you the three lines. And again, just before I do, this image, I didn't want to really talk about this because I have seen in quantum versions of this event how upsetting it is to talk about the fact that this exists in our world. And I actually had it was a different image. It was actually a family, the original image, but I couldn't find it again. I was given this image to use, which is bad enough. It's, I mean, basically kids picking their way through, looking for something of some sort of value that they can survive with. But the fact that it exists is heart-wrenching to a soul, to see other souls going through that. For me, I know that the people involved, they're just part of God, and it's part of the play. They're not a real thing. For me, people aren't real. People are a character that's there for the soul to learn lessons from. And I know that the souls in those bodies are perfectly fine. Nothing ever happens to a soul on this planet. But at the same time, a soul is experiencing that. And for me, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable in this day and age. So I'm told that there are a group of people that will get this, get the word, and they will assist me in helping to assist these people. So as I said, I'm talking to people all around the world, and I'm in particular talking to people who live close by these things and would be able to assist me in helping these people. So the lines are, the first line is, we know the story of the three wise men. And the second line is, we were told that the meek shall inherit the earth. And the third line is, the science in our world was taught to us by a professor. Now, I know there will be billions of people who have no idea or will have different ideas of what the word might be, but there is a word in there, and these people will know it without further instruction from me. Now, if I'm wrong about all of this, then nothing will happen, and no money will be raised, and nothing will change. For me, the world's going to change anyway, and the system is bringing it to an end. How it does it, I don't know. I have no control over that whatsoever. I am experiencing this and going through this like everybody else. But the character Ramanamma Who is a soul. So basically I'm a realised soul. I am no longer a person. And I know how crazy that sounds. But the person is just a fiction, it's just a story, and we all have one. We all have a story. We all have a person that we've all watched. God is making the soul become more aware, so eventually, and this will happen, everyone will be a realised soul, and everyone will understand the world in the way that I am understanding it at the moment. When that happens, the world will change, and it will become a completely different place. Now, I'm going to add a bit more craziness into this, because I don't believe I've said it at this point. There is a determined amount of time that this is going to happen, and that is we have less than 8 years. So I'm being given to say that this world that we live in at the moment will come to a conclusion on the 31st of December 2029. Now, that, for all intents and purposes, will be the end of this world as we know it. But it's not a catastrophe, and everybody believes, we've been told, we've been shown, cinema has shown it, literature has shown it, that the end is a bad thing, and that it's probably going to be a disaster. So this is different in that it's saying, no, it's not going to be a disaster, it's going to be an amazing thing. And over the coming years, I know it doesn't look like that at the world at the moment, but over the coming years, humanity will be shown a different type of world, a world where we could live in harmony together, could be given to live in harmony together, because that's all that happened. This conflict that's going on in our world is part of a grander plan. So, this may be the only time that this will be done. You may never hear from me ever again. This might be completely unsuccessful, and me and Ramanamma Who, because we're two different people, we will fade away into oblivion, and that will be the end of that. That, I think, will be a relief for a lot of my friends and family who have gone through this with me, and there have been a number of people who have been along with me on this part of the journey. But we all live in our own little universe, and we are all alone. We are surrounded by other people, but you're in your world and you are alone in your world, and that's the same for all of us. But it's nice to know that there are other souls going through these journeys. I will, if this is successful, I will in some way make myself available. I don't know how I'll do that, but this, if it's seen by the correct eyes, and if this message is received by those who receive the same education I have, and that should understand the word, send me the donation and use as a reference the word. If you want to assist and don't know the word, that's fine. Make the same donation and use as a reference the word other. I have nothing but love for this audience, because it's the most amazing audience I've ever come across. The people in my life have been part of this journey, and I hope and I thank them for standing by me with this. this is bringing this to a conclusion for me, and I can go back to being the character that I was, if that is part of God's plan. If not, then I will fully become Ramanamma Who, but you will get a different person to what you currently have in your life. I'll be a Ramanamma Who that will be able to contribute in ways that you can't imagine to your lives. And I will repay everybody that's helped me out over these last couple of years. And I thank you all for listening, and I hope that we reach the conclusion swiftly and without too much of an ado. Ramanamma Who.